road was narrower than Sam remembered. Tall pines leaned inward, their branches forming a tunnel that swallowed the last of the daylight. The GPS on his dashboard flickered once, twice, then went black. He hit the screen with the side of his hand, but it only reflected his tired face back at him, pale, with dark crescents under the eyes. He had been driving for 6 hours straight, chasing solitude. The city had been chewing at his nerves for months, the noise, the people, the bills. Fishing was his escape, always had been. Just him, the lake, and the night sky. But as he turned off the main road onto a gravel path marked Black Pine Lake, 2 miles, a strange unease crawled through his chest. The forest here looked different. Older. Too quiet. No chirping insects, no rustle of wind through the leaves, just the hum of his engine echoing between the trees. He told himself not to be stupid. It was just a forest. When he finally reached the clearing, the lake spread out before him, a wide, dark mirror reflecting the dying light. Mist hung low over the surface, curling like smoke. He killed the engine, and the silence that followed was almost painful. Sam stepped out, stretching his legs, breathing in the damp scent of pine and mud. The air was heavy, not just cold, but thick, like breathing through wet cloth. Somewhere far off, water dripped. He grabbed his fishing gear, flashlight, and a small camping chair. He wasn't planning to stay long, just 1 night, maybe 2. A few fish, some peace and quiet. The forest edge loomed behind him like a wall. He thought he saw movement between the trees, a shadow sliding out of sight, but when he aimed his flashlight, there was nothing there. Only trunks, straight and endless, vanishing into darkness. "Get a grip, man," he muttered to himself. "You're just tired." He set up near the shore, the flashlight propped against a rock. The beam cut across the mist, pale and weak. The lake didn't reflect the light, it seemed to swallow it instead. He cast his line, watched the ripples spread. A minute passed. Then 2. The stillness was strange, no frogs, no crickets, no wind. Even his own breathing sounded too loud. Then came the first sound. Tap, tap, tap. It came from behind him. Like a stick hitting glass. Sam froze. He turned his head slowly, the flashlight flickered once, dimmed, then came back. Nothing but trees. Probably a branch, he whispered. But there was no wind to move any branches. He turned back to the lake and stopped breathing. Something was in the water. At first it looked like a ripple. Then it grew taller, darker, like a silhouette trying to stand. 2 faint points of light, eyes, glowed for a second just above the surface. Then they sank, leaving nothing but expanding circles on the water. Sam stumbled back, nearly tripping over his tackle box. He laughed nervously. Jesus! Probably an animal. Deer. Moose. Something like that. But his hands were shaking. The dark pressed in like a weight. Sam tapped the flashlight, shook it, even banged it against his palm. Nothing. Dead. He crouched, trying to remember where his gear was. The faint reflection of the lake was the only thing he could see, a ghostly shimmer beyond the mist. His breath sounded too loud. "Okay, calm down," he whispered. Phone light. He dug into his jacket pocket, found his phone, and turned on the flashlight app. A dim white cone of light spilled across the ground, shaky but enough. The circles he'd seen before were still there, carved into the mud. Only now, there were more of them. A line of prints, like something had crawled out of the lake and into the woods. The phone light flickered. His battery icon showed 2%. "Great," he muttered. "Just great." He pocketed the phone and decided to head back to the car. The forest might have been silent, but his instinct screamed leave. The path was clear, a faint trail of flattened grass he'd made earlier. But after 10 steps, it vanished. He turned in a slow circle. The clearing looked wrong, deeper somehow. The trees had moved closer, trunks crowding in like they were closing a door. No way, he said under his breath. He tried walking in a straight line toward where he remembered parking. His boots sank into the soft ground, branches snapping underfoot. 10 minutes passed. 20. The car never appeared. Only more trees. He stopped, breathing hard, cold sweat rolling down his back. This isn't possible. A branch snapped to his left. He spun, raising his phone light. A figure stood between the pines. It was human-shaped, but wrong. Too tall. Too thin. Its arms hung low, fingers brushing the ground. Its skin, if that was skin, gleamed wetly in the dim light. The face was smooth, featureless except for a mouth that seemed drawn too wide. It tilted its head. Once. Twice. Then it started moving, a twitching, jerking step forward. Sam bolted. He crashed through the brush, the beam of his phone light bouncing wildly. The forest seemed endless, no direction, no sound but his own ragged breathing. He tripped, hit the ground hard, his phone skidding away and landing face up in the mud. The figure didn't chase. It just stood there, watching. Then it smiled. Not a friendly smile, a stretched, splitting one that reached from ear to ear. And from that mouth came a whisper, not from its lips but from inside his head. "Stay with us, Sam." He crawled backward, grabbed his phone, and stumbled up. The light flickered one last time, then died completely. The darkness was total. Somewhere ahead, through the black, he saw a faint glow. A lantern? A campfire? Hope surged. Maybe someone else was camping near the lake. He ran toward it. The glow grew stronger until he stumbled into another clearing. A fire burned in a ring of stones, flames bending strangely, as if there were no wind but something unseen was breathing on them. And around the fire, sitting motionless, Sam stood frozen by the water, the whisper still echoing in his skull. "You know what we want." He stared at the lake, black glass under the moon, and for the first time that night, he considered running straight into it, just to prove that it wasn't real. But the cold air clung to his lungs like smoke, and something deep inside whispered that the lake wouldn't let him go if he tried. His flashlight and phone were both dead, the car nowhere in sight. He tried calling out again, "Hello? Anybody out here?" But the sound didn't travel. It just dissolved, swallowed by the mist. He looked up. The stars were gone. Only the moon remained, thin, pale, and wrong, hanging too low, as if someone had painted it on glass. "Okay," he muttered to himself, rubbing his arms for warmth. "Think, Sam. You came down the trail. You passed that old pine stump. You can find it again." He turned back toward the forest, forcing his feet to move, each step heavier than the last. The trees loomed closer together, their trunks slick with dew, their roots twisting like veins underfoot. Every shadow seemed to bend toward him. He tried to count his steps, whispering under his breath, 1, 2, 3, anything to keep focus. Then something whispered back. 4. He froze. It had been his own voice. Exactly his tone, his rhythm, but coming from somewhere behind him. He turned slowly, flashlight still dead in his hand. "Who's there?" The forest answered with breathing. Not wind. Breathing. Slow, steady, human, but coming from everywhere at once. Sam backed up until his heel hit a root and he stumbled, grabbing a tree for balance. The bark felt strange, soft, almost fleshy. He pulled his hand away, and in the dim light of the moon, he saw red streaks where his palm had touched. Sap, he told himself. Just sap. Then the tree exhaled. A deep, wet sigh, like something sleeping inside it had woken for a moment. Sam staggered backward, tripping over roots and crashing into another trunk. His breath came fast, short bursts. The air was thick with the smell of iron and rot. "Stop it," he whispered. "Stop." "You wanted quiet, Sam," the voice said. It wasn't behind him this time, it was inside him, pressing against his thoughts like cold fingers. You came here for peace. We can give it to you. He clutched his head, squeezing his temples, trying to drown it out. Shut up. The forest went silent again. Then, from ahead, he saw light, a flicker, faint and golden, like the reflection of a campfire. Relief hit him so hard his knees almost buckled. Someone had to be there. Maybe a hunter, maybe another fisherman. Maybe he wasn't alone after all. He ran toward it, branches slapping his arms, his boots pounding against the wet ground. The light grew brighter until he broke into another clearing. And there it was, a small cabin. Wooden, old but sturdy looking, with smoke curling from the chimney and a lantern glowing in the window. He laughed in disbelief. Oh. The whisper still rang inside Sam's head like a bell struck underwater. We can show you the way out, Sam. But everything has a price. He stared at the lake, chest heaving. The water was perfectly still now, black as ink, not a single ripple from his movements. The forest stood around him, silent and tall, watching. He felt it watching. What price? He rasped, his voice cracking. What do you want from me? The reflection in the lake changed. It wasn't his anymore. It was him, but older, sunken eyes, skin grey, mouth twitching with something between a grin and a tremor. The reflection answered in his voice. We want what's already ours. Then it reached up. The hand broke the surface of the water soundlessly, black liquid running down its arm. Sam stumbled backward, his boots slipping on the wet ground. The reflection smiled wider, teeth like shards of bone, and whispered. We want you to remember. Remember what? The forest answered. It wasn't one voice now, it was hundreds. Men, women, children, all whispering in overlapping tones. You've been here before. You never left. We called and you came. Sam covered his ears, screaming for it to stop, but the sound was inside his skull. Images flashed behind his eyes, flickers like old film reels, a campfire, faces he didn't know, the same lake, the same trees. And himself, younger, terrified, running through this same forest, clutching something in his hand. Then darkness again. He dropped to his knees, gasping, cold sweat pouring down his face. No, he muttered. No, I've never been here. I don't even. The reflection laughed. He turned away, forcing himself to move, to get away from the water. He stumbled through the trees, the mud sucking at his boots, branches tearing at his jacket. Every direction looked the same, endless trunks fading into mist. Then he saw the light again. A lantern, faint and yellow, swaying in the distance. Someone was there. He ran toward it, desperate, ignoring the pain in his legs. Hey! Wait! Help! The lantern stopped moving. Then, slowly, it began to approach him instead. Sam slowed. The air grew heavier with each step the light took. Soon, he could see the outline of the figure holding it, tall, cloaked in what looked like tattered fabric that melted into the darkness. The light illuminated a face beneath the hood, not a human face, but a suggestion of one. Smooth, pale skin stretched too tight, eyes like empty sockets, lips whispering though they didn't move. Sam's throat went dry. What are you? The figure tilted its head. The whispering around him stopped all at once. Even the forest seemed to hold its breath. Then, the voice, calm, layered, impossibly close. We are the ones who keep the way. The way? Sam asked, voice trembling. Every forest has a way out. But ours must be earned. He took a step back. I don't want anything from you. I just want to leave. The figure moved closer, gliding, not walking. The air. The cold hit him like knives. Water filled his mouth, his nose, his ears. It was thick, too thick, not water at all but something heavier, clinging to his skin like oil. He tried to swim, to rise, but every movement only dragged him deeper. His lungs screamed. He opened his eyes, and the darkness wasn't empty anymore. Shapes drifted around him. Bodies, hundreds of them, floating in the black. Some were pale and bloated, others twisted into impossible shapes. Their eyes were open. Their mouths moved, releasing endless streams of bubbles that didn't rise but hung in place like silver beads suspended in tar. Sam's heart thundered in his chest. He kicked and thrashed, searching for any direction that looked like up, but there was no light anymore. No surface. Only the endless abyss and the soft whispering of the drowned. Sam! The voice didn't come through his ears, it was inside him, vibrating in his bones. He spun, and there she was. The woman from the hospital bed. Pale, hair drifting around her face like ribbons of smoke. Her eyes were open but empty, her mouth forming words he couldn't hear, until suddenly, he could. "You promised you wouldn't let me die." Sam's chest seized. No, the words came out as bubbles. It wasn't like that. Her face twisted, sorrow bleeding into rage. The water around her boiled. "You turned it off, Sam. You made it stop." He shook his head violently, tears mixing with the lake's darkness. "You were suffering. You begged me to." Her hand reached toward him, fingers thin and white, nails black like rot. "And now you will understand what it means to beg." He tried to swim away, but her hand closed around his wrist. Her grip was cold enough to burn. He screamed as his skin split under her fingers. The water trembled with the force of his pain. Then, she pulled him down. Deeper. Deeper. Until the pressure felt like it was crushing his bones into powder. He stopped fighting. The darkness became thicker, quieter. The bodies around him began to fade, swallowed by the abyss. Only she remained, her face calm now, her eyes soft, almost kind. "They want you, Sam." "Who?" he whispered. His voice was a thought, not sound. She smiled faintly. "The keepers. The ones who live beneath." The lake floor came into view, not mud or sand, but an endless black plain covered in twisted roots. They moved slowly, pulsing like veins, glowing faintly red beneath the surface. She released his wrist and drifted back into the dark. Sam sank to the bottom, feet touching the writhing floor. The roots parted beneath him like something alive, revealing a narrow stairway made of bone and stone. He stared down into it, into the crimson glow below, and for a moment, his fear was replaced by a strange pull. Curiosity. Need. The whisper came again, from everywhere. "The way out is below." He descended. The steps creaked and bled under his feet. The deeper he went, the warmer it got, until the water turned into mist. Sam didn't move. He stood in the clearing, staring at his shadow, the one that smiled back at him. The moonlight flickered as if the sky itself were breathing. The forest was silent again, but it wasn't the silence of peace. It was listening. He took one slow step back. His shadow stayed still for a second, then twitched. A ripple moved through it, like liquid. The smile widened. "Stop," he whispered. The shadow tilted its head. His head. Then it raised an arm, not mirroring him anymore, but moving on its own. The hand stretched toward him along the ground, growing longer and thinner, until the black fingers brushed his boot. Sam jumped back with a yell, stumbling. The fingers retreated instantly, curling like smoke. He turned and ran. Branches slapped his face, roots caught his feet, but he didn't stop. He didn't even know where he was going, he just needed distance, movement, noise. His own panicked breathing was the only proof he was still alive. After what felt like hours, he saw light ahead, not moonlight, but harsh, artificial light. A road. He burst from the trees, falling to his knees on wet asphalt. The shock of the cold surface grounded him for a moment. A sign stood by the roadside, illuminated by a single flickering lamp. "Welcome to Black Pine Lake." He laughed, half crazed. No, 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 no. He turned around. The forest loomed right behind him, stretching endlessly, exactly as before. But the road was real. Smooth. Painted lines. Civilization. He looked up the road and saw a pair of headlights in the distance. A car. Sam stumbled to his feet, waving frantically. "Hey! Stop! Please!" The car slowed, then stopped a few meters away. The window rolled down. A man in a sheriff's uniform looked out. "Jesus, buddy, you all right? You look like hell." Sam nearly cried. "You have no idea. Please, just get me out of here." The sheriff frowned, glancing toward the trees. "You from one of the camps?" I was fishing," Sam stammered. "I got lost. I just need to go home." The man nodded slowly. "All right. Get in. You're safe now." Safe. The word felt foreign. Sam climbed into the passenger seat. The heater blasted warm air, and for the first time since the lake, he felt something like comfort. They drove in silence for a while. The forest rolled by on both sides, endless and black. After a few minutes, the sheriff spoke. "Not many people come out here anymore. You must have missed the signs." "What signs?" "The warnings. About the forest. Been missing folks for years. They say it's cursed." Sam's throat tightened. "Do you believe that?" The sheriff chuckled softly. "I believe some places just don't like people. But you're lucky. Most never find their way out." Sam stared out the window. The trees outside seemed to shift as they passed, leaning closer, like they were following the car. He blinked. They were still again. "Just trees." He exhaled shakily. "Yeah. Lucky." The sheriff gave him a long, sideways look.